She brought up marriage on the second date, and by the third date, he was already planning his escape. Here's why the fastest way to lose someone isn't by being too cold, but by being too eager. You finally meet someone who seems perfect. The chemistry is there, the conversation flows, everything feels right. Then she drops it. Where do you see this going? What are your thoughts on marriage? I'm looking for something serious. And just like that, you feel the walls closing in. Your instinct screams run, but you can't explain why without sounding like a commitment phobe. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Talking about marriage too early doesn't show maturity or clarity. It reveals desperation and destroys attraction. It turns potential into pressure, excitement into obligation, and romance into a business transaction. If you've ever felt suffocated by someone moving too fast, or if you're the one bringing up forever before you've even built today, this video will change everything you think you know about dating. Because the irony is this: the people most obsessed with securing commitment are the ones who sabotage it the fastest. Stop what you're doing and pay attention, because understanding this could be the difference between building something real and watching it crumble before it even begins. You're 3 dates in and it's going well. The conversation flows naturally. There's laughter, genuine interest. Then she shifts. The tone changes. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your views on marriage? How soon would you want kids? Do you believe in long engagements? Suddenly, you're not on a date anymore. You're in a performance review for a position you didn't apply for. This is the marriage audit, and it kills attraction faster than anything else you can do. Here's what's happening. She thinks she's being smart, efficient, not wasting time. She's vetting you against her requirements like you're a candidate for employment. But you're not experiencing efficiency. You're experiencing interrogation. Every question feels like a trap. Answer too enthusiastically. You seem desperate. Answer too casually. You're not serious enough. Try to deflect. You're evasive. The relationship hasn't even established itself yet, but you're already being asked to defend a timeline you haven't created and make promises about a future with someone you barely know. The focus has completely shifted. Instead of discovering whether you actually enjoy each other's company, whether your values align naturally, whether there's genuine compatibility, you're now in defense mode. You're calculating answers, managing her expectations, trying to say the right thing instead of the true thing. This isn't connection. This is contract negotiation. And men don't commit to contracts with strangers. They commit to women they've built something real with. The moment dating becomes an audit, it stops being dating. It becomes a test you can only fail. And the natural response to an unfair test isn't to try harder to pass it. It's to walk away from it entirely. When you bring up marriage too early, you think you're communicating standards and clarity. But here's what he's actually hearing. I need to lock this down before you realize you have better options. I'm terrified of being alone. I'm operating on a deadline and you're my best available candidate right now. This is the scarcity signal, and it's one of the most unattractive things you can broadcast. Confidence doesn't rush. Confidence doesn't need to secure commitment before connection is even established. A woman who knows her value isn't frantically trying to get a ring before someone figures out she's not worth keeping. She's relaxed, selective, patient. She understands that real commitment can't be rushed, because real commitment requires trust, and trust requires time. But when you're pushing for marriage talks on date 2, you're revealing something critical. You're afraid of your age, afraid of your options, afraid that if you don't nail this down immediately, it'll slip away. And that fear is palpable. Men can sense it, and it repels them. Think about it from a basic attraction standpoint. Scarcity creates value. Abundance creates confidence. When you're desperate to marry quickly, you're advertising scarcity. You're essentially saying, I don't have other good options, so I need you to commit now before I lose you too. Compare that to someone who's in no rush, someone who's genuinely enjoying getting to know you, who's selective about who earns her commitment, who has a life full enough that she doesn't need to fast forward to marriage to feel complete. Which one seems more valuable? Which one would you actually want to commit to? The irony is brutal. The more desperately you chase commitment, the more you guarantee you won't get it. Here's what happens the moment you introduce a timeline. The relationship stops being about discovery and starts being about performance. It's no longer, will this work? It becomes, can I meet her deadline? And that shift changes everything. Imagine you're enjoying a new hobby. You're learning, exploring, having fun with it. Then someone tells you that you have 6 months to decide if you're going to do this hobby professionally for the rest of your life. Suddenly, it's not fun anymore, it's pressure. That's exactly what timeline talk does to dating. You've taken something that should develop naturally and turned it into a countdown clock. I need to know where this is going. I'm not getting any younger. I need commitment by this time, or I'm out. You think you're being clear about your needs, but what you've actually done is weaponize the relationship against itself. Because now he's not thinking about whether he enjoys being with you. He's thinking about whether he can meet your arbitrary deadline. And here's the thing about pressure. It doesn't create desire, it creates resistance. The tighter you squeeze, the more he pulls away. You wanted certainty, so you demanded a timeline, but all you did was guarantee an exit. Men don't run from commitment. They run from ultimatums. They run from manufactured urgency. They run from relationships that feel like obligations before they've even become enjoyable. The pressure cooker effect is simple. You thought adding heat would speed things up. Instead, it just made everything explode. Real relationships develop on their own timeline, not yours. And the moment you try to force it, you've already lost it. When you bring up marriage before you've even built real intimacy, you create a question in his mind that he can't shake. Does she actually want me? Or does she just want anyone who fits the role? This is the trust deficit, and it's devastating to attraction. Think about what early marriage talk communicates. You barely know who he is. You haven't seen him in difficult situations. You don't know his character, his values in action, his response to conflict. You haven't built genuine emotional intimacy, but you're already talking about forever. So what exactly are you committing to? The idea of him, the status of being engaged, the security of having someone locked down. Men pick up on this immediately. If she's ready to marry me this fast, she'd be ready to marry anyone who checked her boxes. I'm not special. I'm just available and acceptable. This realization kills something fundamental. The belief that he's chosen, not just selected from a lineup. When marriage comes up too soon, it reveals that you're more invested in the outcome than the person. You want the ring, the wedding, the relationship status update. But you don't actually know him well enough to want him specifically. And that's terrifying for a man to realize. Because if you're willing to marry someone you barely know, what does that say about your judgment? What does that say about your motivations? Are you trying to escape something? Fill a void? Meet a deadline? None of these are reasons a man wants to be chosen. He wants to be chosen because of who he is, not despite who he is or regardless of who he is. Early marriage talk makes that impossible. When marriage becomes the goal too early, something insidious happens. Both people stop being themselves and start auditioning for the role of perfect partner. And you can't build real intimacy with a performance. Real connection requires vulnerability. It requires showing the messy parts, the uncertain parts, the parts you're not proud of. It requires time to let your guard down naturally and let someone see who you actually are when you're not trying to impress them. But when marriage is on the table immediately, vulnerability becomes risk. You can't afford to show your flaws because you're trying to close the deal. So you present the highlight reel, the best version, the carefully curated personality designed to secure commitment. He does the same thing. He's not showing you his actual life, his actual habits, his actual personality. He's showing you the version he thinks will get him past your checklist. Both of you are performing, neither of you are connecting. And here's the brutal truth. You can't fall in love with a performance. You can be impressed by it, attracted to the idea of it, but you can't build genuine intimacy with someone who's acting. Authentic bonding happens in the unguarded moments, in the spaces between trying to impress each other, in the gradual reveal of who you really are when nobody's testing you. Early marriage talk eliminates those spaces entirely. It turns every interaction into a strategic move, every conversation into an evaluation, every moment into a test. You wanted commitment, so you rushed to marriage talk. But all you did was guarantee that neither of you will ever actually know each other. You'll just know the roles you played to get what you wanted. Here's the paradox that destroys most relationships before they start. The more you demand commitment, the less likely you are to get it. The less you demand it, the more naturally it occurs. This isn't game playing. This is basic human psychology. Men commit when commitment feels like their idea, their choice, their desire. The moment it feels forced, obligated, or demanded, every instinct tells them to resist. It's not about being difficult or immature. It's about autonomy. Nobody wants to feel trapped into a decision, especially one as significant as marriage. When you push for commitment early, you're not creating desire. You're creating resentment. You're turning something that should feel like a gift into something that feels like a debt. Think about how commitment actually happens in healthy relationships. A man spends time with a woman. He enjoys her company. He starts imagining a future with her. He begins to feel protective, invested, connected. And then, from that place of genuine desire, he chooses commitment. Not because she demanded it, but because he wants it. Compare that to your approach. You're 3 weeks in and already talking timelines. He hasn't even decided if he likes you enough to introduce you to his friends, but you're asking about engagement timelines. You've turned commitment from a natural progression into a mandatory checkpoint. And his brain immediately categorizes this as pressure, not opportunity. The freedom paradox is simple. Men need to feel free to choose you in order to actually choose you. The moment you remove that freedom by demanding commitment prematurely, you've removed his ability to genuinely want it. You can force compliance, but you can't force desire. And commitment without desire isn't commitment. It's captivity. There's a brutal truth about value in dating that nobody wants to acknowledge. The person who needs the relationship less has more power. And when you bring up marriage too early, you're advertising exactly how much you need it. High-value people are selective. They don't just accept anyone who shows interest. They evaluate, they take their time, they make people earn their commitment because their commitment is valuable and they know it. When you're pushing for marriage on date 3, what are you really saying? You're saying your commitment is readily available to anyone who seems decent enough. You're not being selective. You're being desperate. And desperation obliterates value. Think about it from a market perspective. If someone is trying to sell you something and they're pushing hard for you to buy immediately, what does that tell you? That the product probably isn't as valuable as they're claiming. That they're worried if you think about it too long, you'll realize it's not worth it. The same principle applies here. A woman who's genuinely high value doesn't need to rush anyone into commitment. She knows that if he's smart, he'll recognize her worth and want to lock her down on his own. She's patient because she's confident. But when you're frantically trying to secure commitment before he's even figured out if he likes you, you're revealing something critical. You don't believe you're valuable enough to keep his interest long term. You need to trap him now before he figures that out. This value reversal is devastating. You thought talking about marriage would show you're serious and valuable. Instead, it showed you're available and anxious. Men commit to women they're afraid to lose, not women who are afraid to lose them. When you're ready to marry someone you barely know, you're not ready to marry them. You're ready to marry anyone. And men can tell the difference. Here's what early marriage talk really reveals. You have a void you're trying to fill. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's social pressure. Maybe it's fear of aging. Maybe it's comparison with friends who are already married. Whatever it is, you're not choosing him to fill that void. You're choosing marriage itself. He's just the person who happened to be there when you decided you needed to check this box. This is the replacement fantasy. The belief that getting married will fix whatever's broken inside you. That having a husband will make you complete, give you purpose, solve your problems, validate your existence. But here's the thing. He doesn't want to be your solution. He wants to be your choice. There's a massive difference between "I want to marry you because you're incredible" and "I've found something rare" versus "I want to marry someone and you seem good enough." The first is specific. The second is generic. And when you're pushing for marriage before you've even built real connection, you're broadcasting that he's generic, replaceable, interchangeable with anyone else who fits the basic criteria. Men pick up on this instantly. If she's this ready to marry me after 3 weeks, she'd be equally ready to marry the next guy after 3 weeks if I disappeared. I'm not special to her. I'm just convenient. This realization is devastating to attraction. Nobody wants to be someone's placeholder, their void filler, their checklist item. They want to be genuinely chosen for who they are. Early marriage talk makes that impossible. Relationships have a natural sequence. You can't skip steps and expect the structure to hold. But that's exactly what early marriage talk tries to do. It attempts to jump straight to commitment without building the foundation that makes commitment sustainable. Here's how it's supposed to work. First, there's attraction. Physical, intellectual, emotional. You're drawn to each other, then comes connection. You enjoy each other's company. Conversation flows. You want to spend more time together. After connection comes compatibility assessment. You start seeing how you handle conflict, how your values align, how you fit into each other's lives. This takes time, months, not weeks. Then comes trust building. You see each other in different situations. You observe consistency. You witness character in action, not just words. You learn whether this person is who they claim to be. Only after all of this has been established can genuine commitment happen. Because real commitment isn't a leap of faith. It's a logical conclusion based on evidence gathered over time. But when you bring up marriage early, you're trying to get commitment before any of this has happened. You're asking someone to promise forever before you've even established today. It's like trying to build the roof before you've laid the foundation. The structure can't support itself. You think you're being efficient, cutting through the nonsense and getting to what matters. But what you're actually doing is ensuring failure. Because commitment without foundation doesn't last. It collapses the moment real pressure is applied. The timeline trap is believing you can force a natural process to move faster by demanding its conclusion prematurely. You can't. All you can do is guarantee it never happens, authentically. If you actually want commitment, here's the strategy that works. Stop talking about it. Stop chasing it. Stop making it the goal. Instead, focus on building something worth committing to. Strategic patience isn't about playing games or pretending you don't want a relationship. It's about understanding that commitment is an outcome, not an objective. You don't get commitment by demanding it. You get it by becoming someone a man doesn't want to lose. Here's what that looks like in practice. You enjoy his company without interrogating his intentions. You create positive experiences together instead of analyzing the relationship's trajectory. You demonstrate your value through your actions, your character, your life, not through ultimatums about the future. You let him see who you actually are instead of performing the role of perfect girlfriend to secure commitment. When you do this, something shifts. He starts to recognize what he has. He begins comparing time with you to time without you and realizes he prefers with you. He starts imagining a future not because you forced him to, but because he genuinely wants it. Commitment becomes his idea. And when it's his idea, it's real. This requires patience that most women don't have. It requires confidence that your value will become apparent over time. It requires trust in the process instead of control over the outcome. But here's the truth. The women who get genuine commitment aren't the ones demanding timelines. They're the ones creating relationships so valuable that men naturally want to lock them down. Stop chasing commitment. Start building connection. Stop demanding promises. Start demonstrating value. Stop managing timelines. Start creating experiences worth continuing. Commitment will follow. Or it won't, and you'll have saved yourself from someone who was never going to give it anyway. If this hit home, you need to understand something crucial. The relationship dynamics that destroy modern dating aren't random. They're patterns, and patterns can be broken, but only if you see them clearly. I want to hear from you. Have you experienced this? Were you the one rushing, or were you the one running? Drop your story in the comments. Let's create a real conversation about what actually works. And if you want more breakdowns that expose the hidden mechanics of attraction and commitment, subscribe now. Because the next video might be the one that finally makes everything click. Don't miss it.